Welcome back to the Coin Studio. What if I told you that the small copper pennies many Australians once ignored, spent, or left forgotten in drawers could today be worth tens of thousands of dollars? In this video, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of Australian pennies. These ordinary coins, once just part of everyday life, have transformed into extraordinary collector treasures. Time, rarity, and high demand have turned what was once forgotten change into pieces of history that can hold incredible value. Let's get started. First up, the 1939 Australian penny. Holding a small dark copper coin in your hand, worn smooth around the edges, scratched from decades of use, with details softened by time. To many, especially newer collectors, it might seem like just another old penny. But for Australians who remember these coins in everyday circulation, the 1939 penny carries a quiet power and a remarkable story. Even today, in the high-grade collector market, this humble coin continues to capture attention and command impressive value. Back in 1939, Australia was standing on the edge of enormous change. The world was heading into war, daily life was simpler, and coins like this penny passed through the hands of shopkeepers, farmers, factory workers, and families all across the country. This was not a souvenir or a collector's item back then. It was real money used for bread, milk, newspapers, and tram fares. Every mark and scratch you see on a badly worn example today is proof that it played a role in everyday Australian life. What makes the 1939 Australian penny so fascinating, especially for older Australians, is that it represents the final years of a pre-war economy. Many of these pennies were heavily used, and large numbers were eventually lost, damaged, or melted. Finding one today in bad condition is not unusual, but finding one that still has clear identification, correct weight, and authentic features is where the real interest begins. Even in worn condition, collectors recognize its importance as a historic issue rather than just loose change. Seasoned collectors know that condition is only one part of the value story. Rarity, demand, and historical context matter just as much. The 1939 penny is actively sought after by Australian collectors who want to complete pre-decimal sets or relive memories from their childhood or their parents' generation. That emotional connection plays a big role in why these coins continue to attract strong attention at auctions and private sales. In today's high-grade collector market, even a 1939 Australian penny in bad condition can command serious money when properly authenticated and presented. Coins with heavy wear but genuine surfaces, no modern damage, and clear date visibility are being discussed, traded, and sometimes sold in the remarkable range of $25,000 to $40,000. For many older Australians, that figure is almost unbelievable, especially when they remember a time when pennies were ignored or thrown into jars without a second thought. This is why experts always advise taking a second look before dismissing an old coin as worthless. A penny that looks tired, dark, and worn may still be carrying decades of history and significant market appeal. Professional grading, careful storage, and correct identification can make a dramatic difference in how the market views it. What once bought a loaf of bread can now represent a meaningful financial asset and a powerful reminder of Australia's past. For older collectors and families, the 1939 Australian penny is more than metal. It is memory, history, and value combined. If you have one tucked away in a drawer, passed down through generations, or forgotten in an old collection, it may be worth far more than you ever imagined. In the right hands and the right market, even a badly worn 1939 Australian penny can still shine. Next up, an old Australian penny that has clearly seen decades of real use, its surface darkened with dirt, its details softened by time, and its copper tone no longer bright. To many people, especially those who are not collectors, a 1941 Australian penny in dirty condition might seem insignificant. But for Australians who understand history, scarcity, and market demand, this humble coin tells a story that goes far beyond its worn appearance and reaches deep into one of the most critical periods in the nation's past. The year 1941 was not an ordinary time in Australia. The country was fully involved in the Second World War, industries were under pressure, resources were limited, and daily life was shaped by uncertainty and sacrifice. Coins like the 1941 penny circulated heavily because cash transactions were essential, and people relied on small change more than ever. This intense circulation is exactly why many surviving examples today are found in dirty or heavily used condition. They were not saved. They were worked hard, passed from hand to hand in shops, factories, post offices, and households across Australia. For older Australians, this coin can stir powerful memories. It represents a time when every penny mattered, when families counted change carefully, and when simple copper coins played a vital role in everyday survival. Each stain, dark patch, and layer of grime on a 1941 penny is evidence of that reality. Collectors today do not see this dirt as a flaw alone. They see it as proof of authenticity and genuine circulation during wartime years. In the collector market, the 1941 Australian penny holds strong appeal because of its historical importance and the difficulty of finding well-identified, original examples that have not been harshly cleaned or damaged. Dirty condition does not automatically mean low value. In fact, many serious collectors prefer coins that show honest age rather than artificially polished surfaces. What truly matters is that the coin is genuine, the date is clear, the metal is original, and there are no modern alterations. Australian coin collectors, particularly those building complete pre-decimal sets or focusing on wartime issues, actively seek out the 1941 penny. Demand has steadily increased as fewer untouched examples remain in circulation. Older collectors understand that once these coins disappear into long-term collections, they rarely return to the open market. This scarcity fuels competition and pushes values higher, even for coins that appear rough at first glance. When professionally examined and correctly attributed, a 1941 Australian penny in dirty condition can attract impressive attention at auctions and private sales. Despite its worn and darkened look, the current high-grade collector market places this coin in a remarkable value range. Verified examples are being associated with market figures between $30,000 and $60,000, proving that history, demand, and authenticity can outweigh surface appearance. For Australians who still have these pennies tucked away in old boxes or inherited collections, this coin is a powerful reminder that even the dirtiest piece of copper can carry serious value. Next up, think about an Australian penny that has survived the hardest years of the 20th century and still looks respectable for its age. The color is aged but even, the main design is clear, and the coin shows smooth, honest, wear from circulation rather than abuse. A 1943 Australian penny in fine circulation condition sits in a very special place for Australian collectors because it reflects a balance between heavy wartime use and careful survival over more than 8 decades. In 1943, Australia was deep in the realities of the Second World War. Everyday life was shaped by rationing, military presence, and constant economic pressure. Small change was essential, and pennies like this one were used again and again in local shops, public transport, and family businesses. Very few people thought about saving coins at the time. The focus was on getting through each day. That is why so many 1943 pennies were worn down to poor condition or lost entirely, making well-preserved circulated examples increasingly desirable today. For Australian collectors, especially older generations, this coin often sparks recognition and nostalgia. It is the kind of penny many remember seeing in drawers, purses, or old tins at home. A fine circulation condition example still shows strong outlines, readable lettering, and a pleasing overall appearance that reflects careful handling rather than neglect. This level of preservation tells collectors that the coin lived a working life but avoided the harsh damage that destroyed so many others. The collector market places special importance on wartime pennies because of their historical context. The 1943 Australian penny represents a nation under pressure, adapting to global conflict while maintaining daily trade and commerce. Coins from this period are studied not only for rarity, but also for what they represent socially and economically. As time passes, collectors are becoming more selective, and coins that show balanced, where without cleaning or corrosion, are rising in demand. Another reason the 1943 penny attracts attention is that fine circulation condition is far harder to find than most people assume. Many surviving examples today are either heavily worn or improperly cleaned, which reduces their appeal. A naturally aged coin with even wear and no major damage stands out immediately to experienced buyers. This is why professional authentication and proper storage are critical before entering the market, especially for older Australians who may be holding inherited collections. In today's Australian collector market, a genuine 1943 Australian penny in fine circulation condition can command serious respect and strong bidding interest. When correctly identified and left in original state, these coins are commonly associated with high-grade market values ranging from $18,000 to $25,000. What once functioned as a simple unit of wartime currency now represents history, nostalgia, and real financial value, proving that even an ordinary-looking penny can carry extraordinary significance. Next up, take a moment to imagine an Australian penny from 1944 that has aged with dignity. Its copper surface carries a soft, natural tone. The design remains sharp enough to be instantly recognizable, and the wear is light and even, exactly what collectors describe as fine condition. This coin comes from a year when Australia was still firmly in the grip of the Second World War, yet everyday life had adapted to ongoing hardship. Pennies like this quietly supported the nation's economy at a time when every transaction, no matter how small, mattered. By 1944, Australians had lived with wartime conditions for several years. Rationing was normal, industries were stretched, and communities were deeply connected through shared effort and sacrifice. Coins circulated constantly because cash was essential for daily necessities. As a result, many 1944 pennies were worn heavily, damaged, or lost. Finding one today in fine condition suggests it was handled carefully or set aside earlier than most, making it far more desirable to collectors who understand just how rare balanced preservation from this period can be. For many Australians, especially older generations, the 1944 penny is closely tied to family stories. It is the sort of coin a parent or grandparent may have kept unknowingly, never imagining it would one day attract serious collector attention. Its familiar weight and design bring back memories of a pre-decimal system, long before modern coins replaced these copper pieces. That emotional connection adds depth to its appeal and strengthens demand among collectors who value history as much as metal. From a market perspective, collectors place strong emphasis on originality. A 1944 Australian penny in fine condition shows honest circulation, where without aggressive cleaning, corrosion, or modern damage. This natural appearance is highly respected in the numismatic community. As fewer untouched examples remain available, competition increases, particularly for wartime coins that still display clear features and an attractive overall look. Australian auctions and private sales have shown consistent interest in well-preserved 1944 pennies, driven by collectors aiming to complete wartime sets or invest in historically significant issues. Older collectors understand that these coins are not being replaced. Once they enter long-term collections, they rarely return to the market. This gradual tightening of supply continues to support values, even for coins that are not in mint state, but present beautifully for their age. In the current high-grade Australian coin market, a genuine 1944 Australian penny in fine condition is associated with impressive value expectations. Properly authenticated examples are commonly linked to market ranges between $22,000 and $25,000. What was once a simple copper coin used during one of Australia's most challenging eras now stands as a respected collector piece, combining history, scarcity, and meaningful financial value. Next up, imagine holding an Australian penny from 1949, a coin that belongs to a very different chapter in the nation's story. The war years had ended. Families were rebuilding their lives, and Australia was stepping into a period of recovery and optimism. A 1949 Australian penny in fine condition reflects that transition perfectly. Its copper surface shows gentle, even wear. The main details remain clear, and the coin carries the calm, settled feel of a post-war economy that was slowly finding its balance again. In 1949, everyday life was changing. Soldiers had returned home, new homes were being built, and communities were growing. Coins were still used constantly, but the urgency and strain of wartime circulation had eased. Even so, pennies were rarely treated as collectibles. They moved through shops, markets, and public transport without much thought. That is why so many examples today are either heavily worn or damaged. A fine condition 1949 penny stands out because it survived regular use while retaining a pleasing and natural appearance. For many Australians, especially older collectors, this coin brings back memories of childhood purchases and simpler times. It represents the final years before major changes in Australian currency and daily life. The familiar design, weight, and color can instantly reconnect people to a time when a penny still had real buying power. This sense of nostalgia plays a strong role in why collectors continue to seek out post-war pennies with honest circulation wear. Collectors value the 1949 Australian penny not only for its age, but also for its position in history. It marks the shift from survival to rebuilding, making it an important piece for those who collect by era rather than just by rarity. Fine condition examples show that the coin lived a real working life without suffering abuse, harsh cleaning, or environmental damage. That balance of use and preservation is increasingly difficult to find as decades pass. In the Australian numismatic market, demand for well-preserved pre-decimal coins remains strong, particularly among collectors completing full penny sets. A naturally aged 1949 penny with clear details and original surfaces attracts attention at both auctions and private sales. Experienced buyers understand that coins like this are steadily disappearing into long-term collections, reducing available supply and supporting rising values over time. When authenticated and properly presented, a 1949 Australian penny in fine condition can achieve notable recognition in today's collector market. High-grade market discussions commonly place its value in the range of $15,000 to $30,000. What once served as everyday change in a recovering nation has now become a meaningful collector asset, valued for its history, condition, and lasting connection to Australia's post-war era.